Hello everybody, welcome back. Today we will be seeing about Digital Personal Data Protection DPDP Framework India. See, this was originally from 2023 rules. Now only the framework has been given. So let's see the DPDP Rules 2025 overview. This comes under the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. The implementation period given to the companies for these to adopt these framework is around 18-month phased compliance. So what is the purpose of giving these frameworks right now is the full operationalization of DPDP Act 2023. The act was formed in 2023, but the framework was given recently, very recently. So this framework puts certain obligations on the data fiduciaries. Before going to data fiduciaries, let's go on to key definitions, which will give us what does that actually mean. So data principal is the individual data owner, which means that data principal is you, the person whose information is being received. Okay, data fiduciary means the entity processing that data, which means it is the company that takes your data. The consent manager is the registered intermediary, who is the mediator between you, data principal, and the entity, data fiduciary. SDF means significant data fiduciary, and there is a criticism regarding this, which we'll get into it later. Okay. Now, obligations on the data fiduciaries. There are certain obligations that these framework gives. First is the standalone consent notices. Every thing that needs your consent has to be a standalone, which means it should be short, it should be precise, and it should be very simple. And ease of consent withdrawal, which means that if you can give your consent with just clicking on a tick box, and it should be as easy as that to remove your consent also. And mandatory data erasure after purpose, which means that if the purpose for which your data is collected is fulfilled, then your data should be erased, because the purpose is served. Then why is your data being stored anyway? Okay, 1 year minimum log retention, which means that the data that is being collected has to be kept for at least 1 year. And personal data breach notifications, which means that if there is a breach in your data, you should be notified along with the government. These are all very good. And there are obligations on DPO contact info publication and a 90-day response timeline for each request given by the data principal, which is you. And verifiable parental consent for children, which means that if a children data is to be collected, the parent has to give consent. Okay, these are all very welcoming obligations. And after key definitions, let's go to the enforcement mechanism. How will these frameworks be enforced? Okay, first is the Data Protection Board of India, DPBI. This is the board that will enforce these frameworks. The board consists of 4 members, and there is a dedicated portal or app for compliance. And the appeals will be given to TDSAT, which means Telecom Dispute Settlement Appellate Tribunal. This tribunal will handle all the appeals, and there are financial penalties also. These are all very significant penalties. The first is, if there is a security failure, you have to pay up to 250 crores, which is a very big money. Breach notification or child data, this means you have to pay 200 crores. And if there are any other violations regarding data, you have to pay up to 50 crores. Since the fine amount is extremely high, this is welcoming, because this will ensure that the data is actually being protected. Okay, now there are few core principles in these frameworks. They are, first is consent and transparency, purpose and storage limitation, data minimization and accuracy, security safeguards and accountability. All the frameworks are based on these core principles only. Okay, and why is there a need for data protection? First is the individual privacy and surveillance prevention of fraud and identity theft, national security and cyber espionage, trust in digital economy, See, digital economy is around 11.74% of the total GDP. And ethical use of AI or technology. These are the reasons why we need data protection. Okay, I told you there is a criticism concerning a few things. The first is broad government exceptions, which means that in these frameworks there is a certain line mentioned that if the government requires the data, it can take it, and it does not have to give you any information regarding it for security reasons. Missing right to portability or forgotten, like if I want my data to be removed, forget me, there is no option for it. High compliance burden on innovation, which means that every time some innovation is made, all these compliance is a huge burden on the companies. And ambiguity in the SDF threshold, this is what I've been talking about. The SDF is the significant data fiduciary, which means big companies that hold big data. What problem there is that what does the significant means? What is the threshold for a company to be considered as a SDF? There are no threshold given. The government has to give a certain framework, certain rigid structure to consider which to be an SDF. That's it. There is a Telegram link in the description. In that Telegram channel, I will be providing all the mind maps for the forthcoming videos and this video as well. Subscribe to the channel for more such videos for UPSC, and good luck.